Again, these could be quite experimental marks to do with movement, or they could be longer studies and poses. You can use tone and colour, or black and white. You may be lucky enough to be able to go to a life drawing class to build up your portfolio in time for interview. But you may not, and you may have to ask other people possibly to sit or to study. You may want to use a sketchbook, or you may want to work on large sheets of paper and make it quite expressive. Again, movement is incredibly important, especially if you're interested in some of the moving image courses. And if you don't have the opportunity to have a model or to actually draw from viewing somebody else, you could simply just use your own hands and your feet to actually draw and to practice drawing skills. Process work and sketchbooks, again, is something that we would like to see within your portfolio of work. It shows us your creativity and where your ideas come from. And strangely enough, often what we see in your process work is even more impressive than the final piece. I don't know how you feel, but I'm a maker myself, and often I get so nervous about the final piece that I lose something, and for some of the drawings and initial sketches and process work are actually better than the final piece itself. Often as well, when you have an examination, there is pressure on that final piece, whereas all of your sketches and test work has a lovely energy and vitality about it. So we are interested in both aspects. If, for example, you're interested in one of the 3D courses or costume courses or fashion courses, it could be appropriate for you to use samples of actual material, and that can be presented in one of your portfolio sleeves. Again, it doesn't have to be a finished item. It can be test work. There is a final piece on the next slide of a shoe, a beautiful shoe that was made by one of our students. But for their portfolio, they actually submitted some of their design work, which, as you can see, has annotation to describe their ideas and what they want to produce. The final shoe is very different from their idea development, but it is lovely to see the contrast between the two, to see what their initial idea was and then what was actually created. So this was one of their design sheets, which again we would love to see in a portfolio. And then there was also documentation of the shoe provided in the portfolio also. The same if you're applying for, say, for example, animation or film production. We would like to see storyboards. And this was actually for a film that was then submitted for portfolio. But we see these beautiful drawings and sketches and annotation as to the idea development behind the film. It's really important that we have a sense of the way that you work, and there could be moments where some of your test work doesn't work and it doesn't go to plan, but that could be fundamental and key in a happy accident taking place. I don't know if anyone else has experienced those, but they have happened to me a lot, where something has gone wrong and then either I have had time to reflect or a tutor has seen and they like it. And I think, oh, I could develop this. So often, happy accidents in sketchbooks may turn out to be sleeves in your portfolio. So they could be taken directly from a sketchbook, and you could scan pages of your sketchbook work and submit those pages in your portfolio. Here again is an example of different sketchbook pages where we might just have predominantly drawings and sketching. This is a double-page spread in a portfolio taken from a graphic design applicant who is looking at the development of typography. And the same here. So you can start to see how drawing and design and photography has been used within their idea development. And here, this was for a 3D design applicant. So they're looking at sculpture and objects and how they developed those sculptures and objects, and they documented that. Again, for a three-dimensional design student, they made these beautiful containers, ceramic containers, and they placed them in different locations and then took photographs of those different locations as part of their process work. They showed us what they had actually used. They put some of these different materials, seeds, iron filings, black dye, wheat, into the plaster when making the bowls. And so this was a page from their sketchbook to show us how they had made the bowls. And suddenly you understand the bowls in a completely different way. You start to see how organic they are. And then the different locations that they positioned them in tied in with what they were made from. And again, a visual example here of how just playing with colour and composition in your sketchbook can become again a vital component within your portfolio, just to show how you understand the use of colour and mark making. It can be abstract, it can be quite experimental. As I said before, you can bring with you obviously finished pieces to interview, but it may be more appropriate to actually document the work. And I just have some examples here, some graphic design. So this is a finished piece. These are very large paintings, but they have decided to put 3 of the paintings on one sheet of their portfolio to show that it was more than one. It was a series of paintings. A 3-dimensional object was a bird cage which had butterflies, handmade butterflies inside. And it was a sculptural piece, but they have documented the piece in situ. And this is, in a sense, is evidence of their final piece. An illustration student here, again, because it was a narrative, it was a story, they have decided to include 3 images on one page within their actual portfolio of work to show how the narrative was developed. A photography student interested in documentary, they actually produced a book, a physical book of their photographic work, again because there is a story behind the work, and so they took a photograph of the book itself to show us the nature of the images and how they would work. And again, documentation from an architecture student. So they are interested in not just the actual architectural sculptures, but also their own reference points and any area. They went out and they took photographs and they found existing buildings as reference points, and that was included in their portfolio. And fashion design students, again, you don't necessarily need the actual garment, you might just include the illustration. very interesting for those who are applying for film. Make sure that the images that you produce in your portfolio are seen as cinematic images. So obviously don't use portrait, use landscape format. Take 3 stills from the same film, or if you're producing a series of photographic images, think about the fact that they need to tell a narrative story. Film BA students would also need to present a showreel of moving image work. Ideally 5 minutes in duration, no more. We just want to see 5 minutes. And make sure that you have the actual dialogue itself, if there is dialogue present, rather than putting a music soundtrack to your showreel. You can also include a slideshow of still image work. Maybe you might also want to include scripts that you have written as well. So as a reminder, these are just guidelines. Every application that you make, every portfolio will be different depending on the course that you are applying to. Obviously, say for example, if you're applying for fashion, you will have more physical samples of work. You will have maybe more use of colour in your portfolio. A photography student, for example, we would probably want to see that you have an understanding of framing, of composition, of tone, black and white, etc. So again, you have an awareness of the field of interest within your study or potential study. Your portfolio will be different from everyone else's because you are unique, and we want your portfolio to be unique. And that is very difficult sometimes because we want to be told what to do. How do I do this? But actually, we want an element of your personality to come through in your portfolio. Less is more. Your portfolio should be a showcase of your skill and ability, not everything that you have made. So be selective, because chances are, if there is a piece of work you're not proud of, we will concentrate on that piece of work and you'll be thinking, oh no, I wish I hadn't included it. So just put in the work that you are proud of, that's the best of your ability. This is very important. Do not double mount your work. Okay, there's a tendency for often applicants to think that they will have a mount and make it like a presentation document. Simple, kind of mounting on just a white sheet of cartridge paper in your sleeve, or if it's a digital image, just a white background and the image. It does not detract from your work. It is the piece of work that we are interested in. And often, when students double mount their work, they use glue and all sorts, and then the images get destroyed. So keep it simple. We just want to see the work itself. And more importantly, obviously, don't do this on your own. Get help from your tutors. It's very important. And prepare in advance. I would suggest going out now and buy a sketchbook and get some access to a camera, even if it's your mobile phone, and start taking photographs of the world around you, because the more work you make, the more work you have to select from when condensing and showcasing your portfolio.